Welcome to Across the Goal Line, live from the field. Take it away, Corey.
Welcome to Across the Goal Line. Corey Maines, with me as always is Luke Goddessart. How are you today, Luke?
Pretty good, Corey. Got some exciting news for everybody. We made an Instagram account, so be sure to check us out on Instagram now, along with Facebook and Twitter and YouTube as you're listening to this, and then email us at Gmail if you have any questions or concerns. The Instagram account is at ATGL16, just like it is on Twitter, so be sure to check us out on there. And then I also have some good news for a friend of ours, Christian Lezer. He was a local athlete. We talked about him on our episode 5, I believe, when we talked about local athletes. Well, he had since retired from football. He was playing up at Boston College. Was a linebacker / safety. But like I said, he had since retired due to concussion issues. But he just announced yesterday that after 8 months of debating on whether to come back, and after doing tons of research about concussions and talking with top neurologist in the country, it was determined that he was medically cleared to play football again. So without further ado, he already announced this yesterday on his Twitter and Facebook and Instagram accounts. He accepted a scholarship offer to continue playing his football career at the University of Central Florida. So we wish Christian the best of luck in the future. Go Knights.
All right, today is episode 9, and we have a very interesting topic list that features many different sports. We have tennis as we continue our coverage of the French Open as they are moving into the semifinals here this weekend. And we have racing, both the NASCAR race from this Sunday and also the Indianapolis 500 that also took place that Sunday. We also have the men's and the NCAA championship for men's lacrosse. And we're only going to discuss the Final Four that took place in Philadelphia over the past weekend. And finally, we have the preview for the NBA Finals between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors that gets underway tonight from Oakland at the Oracle Arena. And we'll kick things off today. We're going to start with racing. Luke, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say something there. We're also going to have a special guest when we talk about the NBA Finals and get their opinion on who's going to win the finals.
Yes, we will. So, once again, we will kick things off. We'll start with racing. First of two races that we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Coca-Cola 600 for NASCAR. That took place in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it was won by Martin Truex Jr., who absolutely dominated this track on this day. And it was on his way to his first victory of the season, and his first since last June. Truex Jr., he led for an amazing 588 of the total 600 miles of the Coca-Cola 600. He didn't lead for 12 miles. Luke, I think you said he only was not leading for about 8 laps, I think it was. I believe you said that. And he was hardly contested. The only guy that really passed him was Jimmy Johnson, who was a 4-time champion at the Coca-Cola 600 here in Charlotte. He passed him briefly with 55 laps after a restart, but then Truex Jr. reclaimed that lead only after about a lap. And then he didn't relinquish that lead again for the rest of the race. For Truex, this win breaks a streak of bad luck, as he led for 141 laps at Texas before poor strategy bested him, and then at Kansas a few weeks back, he led for 172 laps until a loose wheel crushed his hopes for a win. And then last year at this very track, he led for 131 laps, but he needed to pit late for fuel, and he did not recover from that. So this certainly is a big win for Truex Jr. moving forward in the chase. And as for the rest of the field, Kevin Harvick grabs second after passing Jimmy Johnson with 44 laps remaining, but he never even came close to catching Truex. No one did, except for Johnson, who ended up finishing third in that race. Denny Hamlin picked up fourth, and then Brad Keselowski was fifth. Now next week the chase heads to our home state of Pennsylvania, where they go to Pocono. Luke, I know you're a big race fan. Have you ever been to Pocono?
No, I have not. I wanted to go last year, but it never happened. Other things came up and wasn't able to go. But hopefully here in the near future, would like to go to Pocono. Would also like to go to other NASCAR races at different tracks. have never been to a NASCAR race before. So let's use the hashtag get Luke to a NASCAR race. How about that?
You heard it here first. Get Luke to a NASCAR race. Hashtag that. I haven't been to Pocono Raceway per se. I haven't been inside or anything. I was on the outside of it. I think I took a picture with a sign for it. I was up in Pocono. Oh my goodness! I want to say almost 8 years ago or something like that. It's been a while, but yeah, I've seen Pocono, quote unquote. So hopefully you can see it there, Luke.
The Tricky Triangle.
The Tricky Triangle, as it is called. All right, we're going to move on to our second race of that same day, actually, Sunday. It was the Indianapolis 500. It was run the same day, May the 29th. In the 100th running of this, the biggest race in IndyCar racing, the greatest spectacle in racing, I believe it is called. It was won by a rookie, Alexander Rossi. He was making his first career start at this race, the Indianapolis 500, and makes him the 9th guy to do so, the first guy to win in his first career start at the Indy 500. The first guy since Helio Castroneves back in 2001. Rossi was able to best a talented field by using a very risky fuel strategy as he decided to try to finish the race on his final tank of gas, something that almost cost him the biggest win of his career. As he raced for the last 90 miles on that final tank and took over the lead when the leaders were forced to pit for gas and as they prepared for the final surge to the finish, he was barely able to hold on as he was running on fumes at the end before running out of gas. He actually ran out of gas soon after crossing the finish line. Now, one of those men that he held off in the end was Carlos Munoz, who's actually a teammate of Rossi's for the Andretti Autosport team. Munoz was one of the guys who had to pit late and was chasing Rossi to the finish. He was charging him down for the last about 50 miles, but Rossi had just enough in the tank to beat him out in the end. But before Munoz had a pit, he battled with the third place finisher of this race, Josef Newgarden. And then Tony Koenig finished 4th. Charlie Kimball was 5th to wrap out the top 5. Now the thing is about Rossi, he had nothing to do with IndyCar racing until this year, as he was part of the Formula One racing in years prior before finally deciding to come back home to the United States, where he's originally from, to actually race in IndyCar. So at this time last year for the race, May 29th, that time last year, he was in Monaco for the Formula One signature race in Monaco. And he was unsure about what his future was. But now look at him now. He's Indy 500 champion, something that not a lot of guys can say. And this win for Rossi really stunned a lot of people in the crowd. A record sellout crowd, first ever for IndyCar racing. Over 350,000 people attended the event here today, on that day, and saw, I would say, some history as a rookie picked up the win. Now we move into something we have never talked about across the goal line until today. We're talking lacrosse, and it's the Men's Collegiate Championship, the semifinal and finals for lacrosse, men's lacrosse. It was played, the 28th was the two semifinal games, and then on Monday, Memorial Day the 30th, was the final round for the championship. It took place at Lincoln Financial Field, which is home of the Eagles in Philadelphia. The semifinal matches were the North Carolina Tar Heels taking on the number 7 seed Loyola of Maryland, and the number 1 seed Maryland took on number 5 seeded Brown. The Tar Heels took out Loyola 18-13 in a match that saw Carolina get ahead early and then maintain the lead to move on to the finals. And it was the third seeded team, Loyola was, that they beat en route to the finals. They took out number 6 Marquette in the first round and then number 3 Notre Dame in the quarterfinals. Now, we move on to our stat of the week. It's coming from that very game, as North Carolina player Chris Cloutier scored half of his team's goals, as he scored 9 goals in this game, matching the NCAA tournament record of 9 that has not been seen since 1992. Now, in the other match, Maryland topped Brown 15-14 in overtime after Brown rallied back from a second half deficit to tie the game late to force overtime. The stage was then set as North Carolina took on number 1 Maryland for the NCAA championship for men's lacrosse on Memorial Day, and it was the Tar Heels that picked up the overtime win in the NCAA championship, with a final score of 14-13 in overtime, as I mentioned. The game winner was scored by none other than Chris Cloutier, who was named MVP of the Final Four during this past weekend, as he scored 14 goals in the 2 games played in the Final Four, as he had 5 in the title game, including the game winner, and then, of course, the 9 in the semifinal round against Loyola. Cloutier actually scored a total of 19 goals in the entire tournament, which is an NCAA record as well, to go with his 9-goal performance in the semis, as mentioned earlier. And for North Carolina, is their first men's lacrosse title since 1991. It's also Carolina's first title game appearance since 1993. The North Carolina women actually won the women's lacrosse championship as well, and their title game was on Sunday the day prior, and it was in Chester, Pennsylvania. With both winning, North Carolina became the first school since Princeton in 1994 to have both men and women's lacrosse win the national championship in the same year. So that's a very interesting stat for you there. That could have probably been our stat of the week as well, but I decided to go with Cloutier for that because I seen that, I don't know, individual accomplishment, I think, trumped it, a little bit. Nevertheless, congratulations to North Carolina Tar Heels. Fantastic school, fantastic program, and we'll see what happens moving forward for them as well. The time has come to talk about tennis again here on Across the Goal Line as the French Open rolled on from Roland Garros. And now, where we stand at this moment, at the time of this podcast is recording, we're in the semifinal round. I won't talk much about what has happened, as I will get into the scores and then all the upsets that have happened since our last podcast, where you saw we looked at the first 2 rounds here that we talked about on Across the Goal Line here. I will mention that on Memorial Day, on the 30th, it was Monday, there was no tennis at all being played. Everything was canceled due to the rain in France, that it was expected to last all day. So there's some rushing, and they had to add more matches on Tuesday and Wednesday, and there's some delay. But we've gotten to the semifinals as I expected. As I said last week, we thought we'd be at this point. We are. But nevertheless, let's get into it and bring some of the scores from the top seeds in both the men and women's side of things. I'll start with the upsets, actually, just to kind of set the stage almost. So we have the third round. For the men's side, number 6, Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. He retired from his match against Ernest Gulbist after injuring his leg in the first set. He was seen wiping tears from his eyes as he is a Frenchman playing in front of his home crowd. He's also a crowd favorite at Roland Garros, and he was forced to retire from the match. And it was really, really emotional for him, and I'm sure it was emotional for the people in the stands as well. So the number 6 seed gone in the third round. Women's side of things, round 3 as well. Number 10, Petra Kvitova lost to American Shelby Rogers 0-6, 7-6, and 0-6. She lost 2 sets where she didn't even get a game off of Shelby Rogers. So she's out. Number 11, Lucy Safarova. She lost to number 21, Samantha Stosur, which isn't much of an upset, but it is technically an upset. She lost to her 3-6, 7-6, and then 5-7 in the third set. Round 4 on the men's side, number 8, Milos Raonic. He lost to Spaniard Albert Ramos Vinolas. 2-6, 4-6, and then 4-6 in a straight sets. Ramos Vinolas is ranked 55 in the world, and he's never won a singles title in his career. Here, he's making that Cinderella-type run at the French Open, and it really is a Cinderella if you consider the fact that this is the first time he's made it past the second round here at the French Open. However, he lost his next match against Stanislaus Wawrinka, the number 3 seed on the men's side, which we're going to get into right now. We're going to get into the men's singles side of things. Number 1, Novak Djokovic is through to the semifinals. He'll play number 13 seed Dominic Thiem in the semifinals. He got there by winning his third round match against Aljaz Badin, straight sets 6-2, 6-3, 6-3. Then beat number 14 seed Roberto Batista Agut in the fourth round, the round of 16, 3-6, 6-4, 6-1, 7-5. And then beat number 7 seed Thomas Berdych today, 6-3, 7-5, 6-3, facing Dominic Thiem, the number 13 seed, who has he made this run to the semifinals thanks in part to number 4 seed Rafael Nadal pulling out of the event with a wrist injury. He got a easier matchup to go. He didn't have to face Nadal in the quarterfinal, or in the fourth round. He had to face unseeded Marcel Granollers in that round, where he beat him, and then he defeated number 12 seed David Goffin today, I believe, 4 sets. So he moved on to the semifinals, and it's good. He's a nice young talent. He's possibly one of the guys who's going to be the future of tennis coming forward and down the line. So we'll have to stay tuned for Dominic Thiem moving forward. Number 2 seed Andy Murray has also made the semifinal. To get there in the third round, he beat number 27 seed Ivo Karlovic in straight sets 6-1, 6-4, 7-6. And then beat the big American number 15 seed John Isner in straight sets 7-6, 6-4, and 6-3. The quarterfinally beat number 9 seed Richard Gasquet, a Frenchman, in 4 sets, 5-7, lost the first one, 7-6, 6-0, 6-2 to sweep him in the last 3. And he plays number 3 seed, defending champion Stanislaus Wawrinka. He made the semifinal by defeating Jeremy Chardy, the number 30 seed from France, 6-4, 6-3, 7-5 in the third round. The 22 seed Viktor Troicki out of Serbia, 7-6, 6-7, 6-3, 6-2. And then he defeated our little Cinderella story, Albert Ramos Vinolas, 6-2, 6-1, 7-6 to make it to the semifinal once again here in the French Open. Murray Wawrinka is scheduled for Friday along with Djokovic's team. The winner of those two will obviously play in the final, which is slated for Sunday. We'll have to see about that. Back to Rafael Nadal. I said he pulled out of the event with a wrist injury, so he will not be able to get a 10th title here at the French Open. He was injured. He was actually injured in his second round match, and he actually played through that match. He finished it off. He won that match, but he said that his wrist began to hurt a lot more after the match when he woke up in the next morning and whatnot. And I think he actually declared himself out of the tournament that very next day after winning the second round match. So no more Rafa. Djokovic gets a little bit of a breather. He doesn't have to play Rafa here at the place that Rafa has dominated throughout his career. So we'll have to see moving forward. Again, the final is on Sunday, at least as it stands right now. We'll have to see if maybe they get some more rain coming up this weekend and through the rest of the week. Nevertheless, move on. Women's singles side of things. The number 1 seed, Serena Williams, made it to the semifinals here. Once again, she defeated number 26 seed Kristina Mladenovic from, I believe, Serbia or Czech Republic, 6-4, 7-6 in the third round. Number 18 seed Alina Svitolina, 6-1, 6-1. And then today played Yulia Putintseva, 5-7, 6-4, 6-1. She beat her in the quarterfinal round. And now we'll play unranked player Kiki Bertens in the semifinal. And she won today, beating Tamia Baczynski from Switzerland, the 8th seed on the women's side. Kiki Bertens actually the one who beat number 3 seed Angelique Kerber in the first round. And she is actually making the Cinderella run that I alluded to earlier with Ramos Vinolas. Vinolas, I'm sorry. I said Vinolas. That's a bit of a gaffe there. I'm sorry about that.
Think about ice cream there, Corey.
Maybe. It's hot. It's been hot here a lot lately, so maybe I guess I am. Nevertheless, I'll move on. Aggie Wadronska, she defeated number 30 seed Barbara Strakova in the third round, 6-2, 6-7, 6-2. But then she lost her fourth round match against Svetlana Perankova, 6-2, 3-6, 3-6. And she went out there. And it paved the way for Garbine Muguruza, who... Oh, I'm sorry. Not that. I'm sorry about that. That paves the way for Samantha Stosur, who made the semifinal, and she plays Garbine Muguruza. Samantha Stosur beat Perankova in the match. I believe it was yesterday or today. I didn't check. I think, yeah, it was yesterday. It was yesterday. She beat Perankova yesterday, and she's in the semifinal now. As I said, she plays Garbine Muguruza, the 4th seed. She defeated Janina Wickmeyer, 6-3, 6-0 in the third round. 13 seed. She defeated in the fourth round Svetlana Kuznetsova, 6-3, 6-4. And then defeated one of the upsetters, Shelby Rogers, the American, 7-5, 3-1, as she retired in the match. Rogers did. So she plays Samantha Stosur in the semifinals, as I mentioned. So it certainly looks like, for me at least, that Serena Williams will walk out of this one as the champion. She has a pretty easy, simple draw. She has to maybe go through Muguruza in the final, possibly. But Stosur's beat her before at the U.S. Open, at least. But that's a hard court tournament, not a clay court like it is at French. We'll just have to see. She gets an unranked opponent in her semifinal matchup. She's really fortunate because that person that she's playing, she beat the number 3 seed Kerber in the first round. She would have had to play her in this semifinal, possibly. Perhaps even number 5 seed Victoria Azarenka, who pulled out, as I mentioned last week. She got injured in her first round match, had to pull out of the event. So she got in a few breaks, but she still had to play well. She did lose a set in that quarterfinal match against Putintseva, but she's been pretty dominant so far. We'll have to see what she does. She's going for that 22nd Grand Slam title, as I mentioned last week.
Do you like sports cards, video games, or collecting interesting items? Then Pastime Collectibles is the place for you. Pastime Collectibles is a collectible store in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. Pastime Collectibles sells hobby boxes, vintage cards, Nintendo games and systems, coins, jerseys, memorabilia, and more. Be sure to like Pastime Collectibles on Facebook and follow at Pastime Collect on Twitter. You can contact them by calling 814-762-1410, messaging them on either Facebook or Twitter, or you can even email them at pastime.collectibles@gmail.com. Do you like hunting, fishing, or talking about the outdoors? If so, you need to check out Downriver Outdoors, an outdoors channel on YouTube that brings you some of the best footage of hunting and fishing from the backwoods of Central PA. They also tell some great outdoors stories. Be sure to subscribe to Downriver Outdoors on YouTube.
All right, before we talk about the NBA Finals and all of that, we're going to go back to the Stanley Cup Finals that we previewed last week, who we thought was going to win and why. As it stands right now, the Pittsburgh Penguins are up 2-0 after the first 2 games in Pittsburgh that they won. The first one 3-2, and then last night they won 2-1 in overtime after a Connor Sheary goal in overtime, a few minutes into overtime. So as it stands, 2-0 Pittsburgh. Game 3 is Saturday night in San Jose at the Shark Tank, and we'll have to see if San Jose can get back into this series, pick up a couple wins here at home, get themselves back in the series. I am obviously hoping for that because I did pick the San Jose Sharks to win this. Luke, you picked your Penguins, so what have they been doing that's gotten them to this point in this series?
They're just so much faster than the Sharks.
Yeah.
The Sharks can't keep up, and both games have been close. But Pittsburgh has won both of them, as you said. But I think Pittsburgh only needs to win one of the next 2 games out in San Jose, and then hopefully they can win Game 5 on their home ice and capture the cup in Pittsburgh, unlike they did 7 years ago when they played the Red Wings for the second straight year, as they won the Stanley Cup up in Detroit. So they're just so much faster than the Sharks, but both those games were in Pittsburgh. The next 2 are in San Jose. San Jose could win these next 2. It could be tied up 2-2 coming back Game 5 in Pittsburgh this time next week.
Yeah, definitely the speed of Pittsburgh is a big problem for the Sharks. The Penguins keep beating all the loose pucks. They keep putting pressure on the defensemen. One of the goals last night, the first goal of the game, really because of the speed, they had a turnover in the defensive zone, the Sharks did, and it led to a Phil Kessel tap-in goal after the pass from Nick Bonino. So,
yeah, it didn't get much easier than that, but then the game ended up going to overtime, and
yes.
So
the Sharks scored late in the third, went to overtime, and then, as I said, Connor Sheary picked up the overtime goal. A nice goal, I will say. I watched that live. Little pass from Letang into the slot right in the middle, ripped a shot right past Martin Jones, upper right-hand corner for him, left for Jones. So, yeah, we move on to San Jose. It will depend. If the Penguins do pick up a win, it will be very tough, of course, for the Sharks to come back in it. They would be down 3-1, maybe even 3-0 if they win Game 3. The Penguins do Saturday night. So it's a really tough fought series so far. We'll see how it goes in San Jose. They weren't able to get the leg up on Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, but maybe they can go back to the Shark Tank, get some home cooking, pick up a couple wins, get this series back on track to being an exciting series. Hopefully it's not just a blowout series, sweeper, maybe 5-game series. I don't think anyone wants to really see that. So we'll have to see what happens in the Stanley Cup Final. We'll bring you more on it next week. We'll see where we are then. And so now we'll kick it over and we will begin the NBA Finals. The NBA Finals get underway tonight here. It is the 2nd of June. It is Thursday. We're recording here on Thursday. We upload on Fridays, as you might already know. So by the time you listen to this, it'll be at least a game into the NBA Finals. But nevertheless, we are going to preview the finals because we don't know anything that's happened so far yet. As we were recording, no games have been played, nothing's been happening. So we will preview this. Is, of course, as everyone probably knows, the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Golden State Warriors, as the Cavs are seeking their first title and the first for their city, which hasn't seen a title for any sort of like sport for decades upon decades. I watched the 30 for 30 the other night about Cleveland, the Believe Land, about how they have not had a title for many, many decades even. So, or a few decades at least, not many decades, but nevertheless. So star LeBron James, he's making his 6th straight finals appearance and his 2nd straight since returning to Cleveland last season, when they lost to none other than the Golden State Warriors last season in the finals in 6 games. So this is a rematch of last year's finals. Luke, I know you picked these two teams. You've been saying it all the time we bring up picks. You picked the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. You are very happy about it.
Yes, because you didn't.
I didn't, but yeah, Luke, you picked them, but like 70% of America picked these two teams too, so
Yeah.
I'm going to have to knock you on that one. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
I also got the Stanley Cup Finals right too, and you didn't. So
well, you don't even. I shouldn't even get into that. I won't get into the fact that you picked them because it's the Penguins, they're their favorite team, and the Sharks. I don't even know why I picked them. You just did. You picked them in that first round, and you're just like, all the way, I guess. That's how I saw it, at least. However, back to the NBA Finals as we are talking now. We have NBA Finals. Actually, we're going to go back because I want to get this straight. I like to... Luke, you went with the commoner route. I like to take the road less traveled, you could say. You picked the popular choice, and I did not. If you recall, I picked the Boston Celtics of all teams, which you were happy about. Yeah.
Yes, because they're my favorite team.
But I picked the Boston Celtics to go to the finals. Look where that got me. So, I wouldn't say I'm a Nostradamus by any means. I wouldn't say you are either, however. So, nevertheless, once again, let's try to get this back on track. So, the Cavs, they made it to the finals by beating the Detroit Pistons and the Atlanta Hawks and the Toronto Raptors. They sweep the Pistons and Hawks in the first 2 rounds 4-0, and then ran into a little snag with Toronto. Toronto fought back in games 3 and 4 at home in Toronto to make it a series, but then Cleveland blew them away in every game that they won in that series. They've been pretty dominant so far in these playoffs into the final, so they are definitely a tough team. They're probably a lot better than they were last season when they lost to the Warriors, because they will have 2 of their star players back, of course, Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. Love didn't play for the last couple rounds in the playoffs last season, and Kyrie got injured in Game 1 of the finals last year, didn't play in the rest of the series, so those 2 guys might make a difference for Cleveland. However, the Golden State Warriors, you could argue, are way better than they were last season as well, as they, of course, won 73 games this season, breaking the NBA record set by the Chicago Bulls of 95-96 with 72 wins. So they certainly look a lot better, too. They, of course, have their stars as well. Cleveland has LeBron, James, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Love. But the Warriors, they have Stephen Curry, the 2-time MVP, 2-time reigning MVP, of course, the defending champions, the Warriors. They also have Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. You got Curry, who's like the big stud of their team. He does it all pretty much. Draymond Green, he's not exactly superstar on the offensive side of the ball. He's not like the flashiest guy, but he's an emotional leader for them. And then Klay Thompson's a spark plug type of guy who just comes in and then puts up like 9 points in like a matter of a minute, and then all of a sudden the team's back in it, just like he did against the Thunder. But more on that in a bit, because the Warriors, they defeated the Thunder to make it to the finals. In the first 2 rounds, they beat the Rockets and the Portland Trailblazers in 5 games apiece. The only reason they lost a couple games because Stephen Curry didn't play in 2 of those games due to injury, so they lost those 2 games. They've been pretty dominant as well, except for the last round where they were pushed to the brink by the Oklahoma City Thunder in 7 games. They won that series just on Monday, on Memorial Day, in Game 7 at home at Oracle Arena. And in that series, they were down 3-1 after leaving Oklahoma City for the series after Game 4, as the Thunder won games 1, 3, and 4 before losing the last 3 games, 5, 6, and 7, one of those being at home Game 6, in a game that, well, Klay Thompson lit up the scoreboard, as I said. He did it on Game 6 at Oklahoma City, dropped 41 points and set an NBA record for 11 three-pointers in a playoff game in a conference finals. in that game. And then he made big shots in the seventh, this game 7 at home at Oracle, where the Warriors went on. They were down by double digits. They made an 11-2 run in the second quarter, but Klay Thompson had 9 of those points. So he got the crowd into it, got the team back into it. They took over the lead late in the third quarter of that game 7. Never looked back. Won the series in 7 games, and here we are at the finals now. Cavs versus Warriors, the rematch, and now we're going to get into who we think are going to win this series. To help us pick up who we think are going to win the finals, we decided to call our good friend Jordan Royer. He's a basketball fan. We tried to bring him in here. So, Jordan, can you hear me? First of all,
I can hear you.
You can hear me? All right. So, we're talking the NBA Finals, of course. You're a Warriors fan, right?
I am.
You are a Warriors fan? Big fan of Steph?
Steph Curry, my favorite player in the league.
All right. I know you are a Warriors fan. We wanted to ask you who you think's going to win. Obviously, you're picking the Warriors, obviously, right?
Actually, no.
Really?
Yeah, judging based off of what I've seen here in the finals lately and the conference finals and everything, the Thunder have been looking like a really solid team. I honestly didn't think the Warriors were going to make it out of that series. And based off of how the Cavs have been playing, the way they bulldoze the Raptors and everything, I don't know that LeBron and his squad's going to be able to stop this final series. I think Steph might be in for it.
All right, that's interesting because I know a lot of times fans can be really biased about this type of stuff, but I will admire your honesty about thinking that the Cavs are going to win. So that's an interesting take on that, about how the Warriors might not have gotten out of that series with the Thunder. That's actually one of the reasons I'm picking the Warriors, actually, because they got out of that series. The momentum they got from that series, picking up those coming back from 3 games to 1, that's pretty impressive, I would say. You don't think that's going to be a big factor in the next series here in the finals?
Well, and that's what I'm hoping too, Corey, is that they do pick up momentum after that series. I think they struggled a little bit with the Thunder, having to deal with Russell and KD, and they struggled with them throughout the season. But I'm hoping that this momentum kind of picks up, and obviously they had the great season, the record-setting season. But like I said, LeBron's just one of those guys. He really picks it up, in the finals and that, and I think his team's starting to get that chemistry that they need, and I'm just, being a Warriors fan, I hope that they do pull it off, but right now I got to go with the Cavs.
All right. How many games?
I'm thinking, I would say probably 6 games. I would like to see Game 7. I'd like to see a couple buzzer beaters in there, but I mean, these are 2 really competitive teams. I think it's going to be hard defensively, and I hope everybody steps it up, and Draymond's, not out there picking up dumb fouls and everything, and I hope it's a good series. That's always what we like to see. And, not having a healthy Cavaliers team last year made it different, especially for me as a Warriors fan, because, people like to call out and say that, the Cavs team wasn't healthy. That's obviously why the Warriors won. That's why I'm really excited this season, this final series, because, we have a full, healthy Cavs team, and the Warriors are healthy. So I'm looking forward to a really competitive series.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be a really nice competitive series. Do you think possibly that, I'm going to say here that you may be thinking that Kyrie and Kevin Love being back for the Cavs for this series is going to maybe swing the series into the favor of the Cavaliers, maybe?
I think it may. I think, like LeBron said, after his post-game interviews and stuff last final series, he said, at the end of the day, we just ran out of talent. And I completely agree with him. Being a Warriors fan, I have to completely agree with LeBron and say that they did run out of talent at the end of the day, not having Kyrie and Kevin Love. And now that they're healthy and back, and they've been looking fairly solid this series, this season and everything, I think that is going to sway, more toward the Cavaliers. But I think, ultimately, it's going to come down to whether or not Steph and Clay and everybody are on fire, because it could turn into a completely 3-point series.
Yeah, definitely a 3-point series, especially looking at the Cavaliers. Not maybe in the last series, but yeah, the series against the Hawks, they were draining threes from all over the place. They have a bunch of great 3-point shooters. They picked up Channing Frye, and they have J.R. Smith. They can both light up the 3-point scoring sheet. So this is definitely maybe a shootout type of series, I believe.
That's what I'm thinking, too. Both the Warriors and the Cavs have these guys that come off the bench and aren't necessarily extreme stars, but they play their role. They play the role that they have to. Like you said, Channing Frye getting picked up by the Cavs. He steps out and he hits his threes and contributes to, that game where they set the record of most threes in a game and everything. It's both teams have the correct benches that they need in order to make this series just unforgettable. And I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's a very interesting series. Live by the three, die by the three, So we'll have to see how that goes. Tonight's game one. Who do you have in game one tonight?
Well, because it's home court for the Warriors, I think, Oracle Arena, baby, it's hard to take down the Warriors at home. So I think game one, the Warriors are going to get it, but who knows where it could go from there.
Yeah, Oracle definitely very raucous, a very loud and very energized crowd, especially coming off of that last series with Thunder.
Yeah, it was, again, I honestly don't know how they made it out of that series with KD and Russell. Steph pulling out the MVP. I thought one of the only other guys that deserved to win that MVP was Russell Westbrook, and it's unbelievable how they managed to pull themselves together and win that series. So I hope they don't have that struggle with this series, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Hey, Jordan, it's Luke. Speaking of the MVP there, who do you think's going to win the MVP of the NBA Finals since you have the Cavaliers defeating the Warriors?
If I'm picking the Cavs, I got to go with LeBron. I mean, just again, like I said, the way he really steps it up in the finals and in the playoffs in general, and the way a lot of people say that LeBron just likes to touch the ball and score a lot. But in my opinion, you look at his game, you look at his numbers, he's really stepped it up in being able to facilitate the game. And we all know LeBron's that guy that can basically play all 5 positions on the court. So I got to go with LeBron winning the MVP of the final series.
All right. I was thinking maybe it could be a surprising guy like the last couple of years it has been, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Andre Iguodala won it last year because he shut down LeBron. Likewise, Kawhi Leonard did too when they defeated the Heat when he was still on the Heat. So maybe it'll be a guy, I don't know if it'll be a defensive guy per se for the Cleveland. Maybe like a J.R. Smith or something. Maybe he gets ridiculously hot during this finals and just starts dropping in ridiculous amounts of threes. So we'll have to see about that.
That's exactly right, Corey. I mean, J.R. Smith, he's one of those guys that he's real streaky. One game he'll be off, and then the next game he'll just be hitting everything in everybody's faces. So I absolutely agree. It could very well be a guy like J.R. Smith or Kyrie Irving really stepping up to the plate.
All right, Jordan, thanks, man, for coming on the show here, giving us your little opinion there, your pick. We appreciate it. I don't know what to say, man. Just see you, man, I guess.
Well,
absolutely, man. I appreciate you guys having me on the show and everything. Allow me this opportunity to kind of voice my opinion and everything. I appreciate that, and hope I can come back on again sometime.
Yeah, anytime. We'd love to have you back. You have great insight. Do you want to give out your Twitter or Instagram, or get some more followers on any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Follow me at Slim Royer on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything, all that. Hit me up on there. I need
the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
Thanks again, man. Really, really enjoyed it. Hope you can be back on. If we have some more stuff for that, maybe go into the NFL, maybe we'll get you back on here. So thanks again, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right, with that, we move on to Goal Line Stand, our little mini question round. We got 3 questions for Luke today. The first 2 of them are about basketball, 1 about the NFL. No, the first question is about the NBA. It is about a superstar in the NBA who's becoming a free agent. It's Kevin Durant, because the Oklahoma City Thunder lost on Monday. Their season's now over, and Kevin Durant will become a free agent on July 1st. Now, where might he end up, Luke?
It's hard to tell right now. He could re-sign in Oklahoma City and stay with the Thunder. He could go to L.A., Boston's a possibility. Miami's also a possibility. Could go to a team in Texas, say the Rockets, the Spurs, or the Mavericks. But let me tell you this. He's going to end up with at least one. Well, I shouldn't say at least. He will end up with one of the other 29 teams in the NBA if he doesn't re-sign with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
That's a pretty fair assumption, I would say. I say the odds are in your favor for that. For me, I'm going to say probably stay in Oklahoma City is probably one of the large ones. Stay with Russell because they came so close to making the NBA Finals this season.
And they've already been to a finals before.
Yeah.
In which they lost to LeBron in Miami. LeBron and company.
Yeah, LeBron and company.
D-Wade.
LeBron's first title. LeBron's first title back down in Miami. And otherwise...
And I know you'd like to see Durant return to your Thunder, too.
I would. It's just... I don't know, though. As you know, it's not. I don't exactly like the Thunder because they're the Thunder. I like them because of what they were former. Of course,
yeah, Supersonics.
Yeah, so... if he left, it'd be okay, I guess. I have a bit of a thing, maybe that he sticks around for maybe a year, and then he just goes along with Russell Westbrook, and they kind of become a package deal. Maybe they kind of go to the same place, maybe like L.A. I know Westbrook's thinking L.A. possibly because he went to college in UCLA, so he might go L.A.
And Durant went to college in Texas
That's another reason for him going down to
so he could go back to Texas, the Texas team. But he's from Washington D.C.
Yeah,
the Wizards have been getting a lot of what's the word I'm looking for?
Talent? No.
They do have John Wall. I think adding Durant would help them a lot, and they just hired Durant's old head coach in Oklahoma City, Scott Brooks.
Yeah.
So that could be a possibility. Plus, he's from there, like I said. So
pull LeBron on us, go back home. Except he wasn't already there before. So
yeah.
Other than that, I would say maybe a Texas team like you were talking about. I was thinking San Antonio if they can pull it together. San Antonio. If he goes to San Antonio, it's over. I mean, San Antonio will be the best team in the league next year if he does because they will have an unbelievable amount of talent on that team. They'd have an entirely new big three right there with Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus Aldridge, and then Kevin Durant possibly to a towering big three.
So, someone would have to take a pay cut if Tim Duncan didn't retire, Manu stayed, and Tony Parker stayed too.
Well, those three guys might be the ones to take it. I feel like those guys would take one because they know if it's for the championship, they respect that.
Yeah, the Spurs would be the best team in the league then because they'd have 6 superstars on their team.
3, of course, are past their prime, of course. They're on the tail end of their careers. But still, yes. They would have 6 fantastic. A lot of experience as well.
Yes, it'd be a lot of experience. It'd be a good sight to see and probably be one of the first times in NBA history that a team has been able to, form 6 players on a team like that.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see where Durant ends up. July 1st, he becomes a free agent, like I said. So it is around that time. It will be Kevin Durant watch for where he ends up. All right, question number 2. The NFL Pro Bowl is now moving to Orlando, moving from Hawaii as it's been for a very long time now. It's also reverting back to AFC versus NFC, unlike previous seasons where they had 2 coaches, quote-unquote, pick teams from Pro Bowl selections. So what do you think about this move to Orlando and the reversion back to conferences?
I like it. I'd like to see it stay in Hawaii at Aloha Stadium, but moving it to Orlando, especially at the end of January, early February, depending on the schedule, you're going to have a lot of people down there at that time, especially some older people. Going down south for the winter. So I like the move. I really like the move because it's going back to AFC, NFC. I hated it. I haven't watched the Pro Bowl in a couple years because of it. Because they would draft, all the players onto 2 different teams. And those coaches would be, former players as well. Jerry Rice and... I
think it was Michael Irvin this year.
Yeah, Michael Irvin were the coaches this past year. So with it going back to AFC, NFC, I'll be sure to tune in and watch it from now on.
All right, final question for Goal Line Stan. There have been questions coming about who is the face of the NBA, Steph Curry or LeBron James. For you, Luke, who do you think is the face of the NBA?
Has to be the current MVP, Steph Curry. He's won the MVP 2 years in a row now. I know LeBron has how many MVPs?
I think it's like 4.
Yeah. But, I mean, the real face of the league is Jerry West because he's on the logo. But, you know, right now, I'd have to say Steph Curry.
It's hard to argue with that. He's kind of edging out LeBron on top now with the run he's made. He's a part of this historic team, the 73 wins.
But we're going to have to find out and see who wins the NBA Finals because that's going to have a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Whoever wins this finals, I think, just cements themselves as the top guy in the league for sure, whether it be Curry or LeBron.
For the next year until, you know, the finals next year. And then we have, you know, the same question might come up again this time next year, but
yeah,
that's only if, you know, these two teams are playing in another rematch 3 years in a row next year, but we'll just have to find out and see.
Keep all the talent, maybe you just maybe you get that.
And Anderson Varejao, that's a player we haven't talked about. He's played most of his whole career in Cleveland, and then they released him this year, and then he signed with Golden State. So he spent half the season with Cleveland and half the season with Golden State. And both of his teams are playing in the finals, so if he was on either team at the start of the year and played all year, you know, he still made it to the NBA Finals. He's getting a ring this year no matter what. So kudos to Anderson Varejao.
Yeah, I saw that he's the first man, I do believe, to play on both the teams that made the finals, the Cavs and the Warriors, as you just mentioned. So we're talking about the NBA Finals. It's time for the question of the week this week, which is actually about the NBA Finals. Who will win the NBA Finals? Will it be the Golden State Warriors reigning supreme yet again over the Cavaliers, or will the Cavaliers come out on top to win their first title and first for a city that desperately needs one?
Well, the Warriors have home court advantage. Games 1 and 2 are in Oakland, 3 and 4 are in Cleveland, 5, 6, 7.
They all rotate back and forth.
Yeah, everyone knows how the schedule goes. But I picked Golden State a while ago to beat Cleveland, so I'm sticking with my gut. And the reason behind that is because I think they just have too much momentum right now. Coming back down 3-1 to Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals and winning that series in 7 games is just remarkable. So I think they just have too much momentum on their side, and I think Golden State Warriors will beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in 7 games this year, unlike 6 last year.
If you heard me earlier when we were talking to Jordan about the NBA Finals, who he thought was going to pick, who he's going to pick to win, I said I had the Warriors winning this one. I said I don't know if I mentioned it. I think it's going to be at least 6, maybe 7 games. I think the Warriors just edge out LeBron and company. I mentioned a lot of the reasons why, but ultimately it comes down to I think that the Warriors' big three of Curry, Thompson, and Green are just a little bit better than LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love for the Cavaliers. So that's my take on it. So I think we're in agreement here. Warriors in 7 maybe. I'm saying possibly 6. So we're in agreement on that. All right, that's where we're going to wrap it up here today on Across the Goal Line. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at ATGL16. Both of those links are available in the description of the video, along with our new Instagram that Luke just made the other night. Is also ATGL16. You can follow us on there as well. Like all the photos, do what you have to do. If you're answering the question of the week on Twitter, use the hashtag ATGL16 when doing so. And don't forget to email us any questions or concerns at acrossthegoalline2016@gmail.com. And for Luke Goddessart, I'm Corey Maines, and we will see you on the next edition of Across the Goal Line, live from the field.